Good morning. Today I want to talk once again about the upcoming lunar month from March 8th through April 10th of 2024. But this time I want to focus on how it might impact specific countries and individuals. So let's see if I can share my screen. And I'll also be drinking some nice oolong tea while I'm doing this. Okay, share screen time. It'll take me just a couple of seconds to get things set up. I have to hide some panels that are in my way. And now I think we're ready to go. The lunar month for countries and people: America, Biden, Trump, Israel, Netanyahu, Hamas, Iran, Putin, and Ukraine. And this is from March 10th through April 8th. So we'll start with America. And the chart I usually prefer to use for the United States is the July 2nd, 1776 chart for the passage of the resolution for independence. And it works a little better for me than others, but what I'm going to say today pretty much applies to all the various July 1776 charts out there that people use for America. Okay, now for each country or person, first I'll show just the natal chart. And then as a point of reference, I have a bi-wheel where I've got that natal chart on the inside and uh, the transits halfway through the lunar month, which will be the full moon on March 25th, 2024. And that is also a lunar eclipse. Okay. And I have highlighted over here on the right the major aspects. We'll talk about those in a second. And then that is followed by a graph which shows you how those aspects will be waxing and waning throughout the month, what days they might be exact on, and so forth. And then we go on to the next chart. Okay, so let's go back here. And, oh, one other thing you might notice is that in some of these charts, in the center where the aspects are usually shown, I'll have a little box, and inside that box, what it is showing is midpoints that will be activated at the next new moon on April 8th, 2024. That new moon is going to be a solar eclipse, and I think will be a very powerful solar eclipse because Sun, Moon, and Chiron are all exactly conjunct at 19 degrees 24 minutes of Aries. Now, most of these charts are going to be activated by transits at that time, and almost all of them are going to have midpoint activations. And that is what is shown here. If you look at this, it has Chiron conjunct the Sun Pluto midpoint in the natal chart for America. And since transiting Sun, Moon, and Chiron are all exactly conjunct at 19 degrees 24 minutes of Aries on April 8th, what this is showing is that the transiting Sun, Moon, and Chiron are all going to be exactly conjunct the Sun Pluto midpoint in this July 2nd, 1776 chart for America. So one of the things that is showing is that this upcoming April 8th solar eclipse, it could impact uh, the soul of the nation and those people in our nation who have power. The individuals, the leaders, Sun, who have power, Pluto, could be wounded by Chiron, or they could possibly have some sort of great spiritual transformation. some great epiphanies. That may be a little less likely, might be more likely that there'll be some sort of wounding. So if I have something in the center of the wheel here, this is showing a midpoint that will be activated one way or another on April 8th of 2024 at that momentous solar eclipse. Okay. Also, in each of these charts, anything that is close to 19 degrees of a cardinal sign is going to be activated by that eclipse. And that is the case with this chart for America, where natal Chiron is at 20 minutes, 20 degrees, 6 minutes of Aries. So America is going to be impacted in particular by this upcoming solar eclipse. And you might be aware that America is also going to go through 3 Chiron returns in the next 12 months. 2 in 2024 and 1 in February of 2025. The first Chiron return is on April 20th, same day as the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. And the next Chiron return is going to be around the time of the presidential election. Might be on or a few days afterwards. That I have to double check. Anyway, let's see what else we have here. At the beginning of this lunar month, well, in this chart, this is set for midway through the lunar month, we have transiting Chiron conjunct natal Chiron. And we also have the North Node opposite conjunct natal Saturn. So you can see the North Node, it's really getting close this to a, or I should say the lunar nodal axis is getting very close to a conjunction with natal Saturn. Transiting Chiron is getting close to conjunction with natal Chiron. This is a period for America where we have to deal with some of our past karma, the results of our past actions. And we will go most likely through some sort of wounding. There will be individuals who will respond to the higher call of Chiron for spiritual transcendence, to transition from the visible to the invisible. But for probably many more, there will be some wounding. And when we get close to a Chiron return in these July 1776 charts for America, we usually experience political wounding. This happened back in the early 70s, where we had Chiron in opposition to Saturn 3 times, followed by 3 Chiron returns. And we're going through the same thing this time around. We've not too long ago had 3 oppositions of transiting Chiron to natal Saturn, and we're about to experience 3 Chiron returns. Back in the early 70s, it was political wounding. Both Richard Nixon and Vice President Spiro Agnew wound up having to resign. The big wounding for the country was Watergate. But we also saw the Senate Select Committee to investigate Watergate rise to the occasion. It was one of Congress's finer moments, and they responded to the more transcendent aspects of Chiron. And I think of Chiron as actually a higher octave of Jupiter. Jupiter has a lot to do with justice, and we saw justice serve the way it should be in terms of the work of that committee. Maybe not so much later when President Ford gave a blanket pardon to Richard Nixon. Anyway, we expect similar things this time around. And sure enough, right now we're still going through a lot of political wounding in the aftermath of the January 6th insurrection. Donald Trump is at the center, and A lot of this year seems to center around will he or won't he go to trial uh, for some of his alleged transgressions. Well, he's been through some trials already and owes about $500 million to the court, so we'll also see how that plays out. But for America and for this month, uh, these themes of political wounding and having to deal with the aftermath of our past actions as a nation, our past karma, those things are going to be highlighted this month. Okay, now there are also several good aspects. So that is going to help release a lot of this tension. Transiting Saturn is going to be trine natal sun. This is very good. And the sun is in the 10th house, so this is good for the leaders. We'll probably have steady leadership, people who can guide the course of this ship of state. So this trine this month is very good. We also have transiting Neptune, sextile natal Pluto. More and more people in this country are going to be responding to some higher vibrations, if you will, some more transcendent energies and drives within them. And this is reiterated by the next two aspects. We have transiting Uranus, uh, trine natal Neptune, and we have transiting Chiron over here, making a sextile to natal Mars. So there are going to be some transformative visions that people have. There is going to be a lot of creative ideas and dreams and inspirations and visions that occur. And people are going to be trying to transform some of these more beautiful things into action. That is represented by Chiron in Aries, which is ruled by Mars. It's making a sextile to natal Mars. That's our drive for action. Mars is in Gemini. That has to do with ideas. So we are going to have our problems this month and much of the year. Uh, but I think the bones are good. It's like the bones of the house are really good. There's an underlying stability here, at least for this month. And then at the beginning of the next new moon, we have Sun transiting Sun, Moon, and Chiron, exactly conjunct that Sun Pluto midpoint. Uh, that could cause wounding to leaders in the country, but could also result in some transcendence. Usually the wounding is a little bit more likely, but with Joe Biden and some others, actually transcendence might be more likely. Okay, this graph shows us when things are going to be exact, when they're getting stronger, when they're getting weaker. This opposition of the North Node to natal Saturn, this is the nodal axis actually conjunct natal Saturn, that's getting stronger throughout the lunar month. The lunar month goes from about here to over here. So I've got a little bit outside of that. But that's going to keep getting stronger. So there will be issues that don't go away. And transiting Chiron, conjunct natal Chiron, that is going to be increasing in intensity soon. I'm using about a 2-degree orb for all of this. And it becomes exact on April 20th. So interesting times. If we look at the good aspects, Neptune sextile Pluto, that is very strong. Becomes exact on March 23rd, a couple of days before that lunar eclipse. So that's a good sign. That will be very strong at the lunar eclipse. And that will be a good influence that will stay with the country for several months. And let's see, then we have Transing Saturn will be exactly trine the sun on March 11th. That's going to be the day after the new moon. Transiting Chiron, sextile Mars. That's going to start building soon, becomes exact after this lunar month on April 16th. And transiting Uranus, trine Neptune. We start to feel those beneficial effects around the last week of March. And it gets stronger and stronger and looks like it reaches exactness on April 30th. Down here I have Jupiter trine Neptune. That is a very beneficial aspect. I don't have it highlighted over here because it doesn't take effect in this lunar month, but in the second half of April it will, and becomes exact on the 23rd, just a few days after the Chiron return and the transiting Jupiter conjunction with transiting Uranus. But this brings in the latter part of April a lot of good visions, a lot of higher ideals and ideas. It gives the broad strokes of things. And with Jupiter and Taurus, this could apply beneficially to the economy. Okay, now let's move on to the next chart, and that's going to be Joe Biden's. All right. And if we look at the various aspects here, well, we have transiting Pluto square the moon. This is the most ominous thing. Uh, if we use a 2-degree orb, then it's going to be in effect for the entire year. With a 1-degree orb for most of the year, there will be a few periods where it's the separation from 90 degrees is more than 1 degree, but it's going to be impacting him throughout the year. You know, the worst case scenario is death. The moon rules his 8th house of death and transformation. Next in line would be severe health problems. Uh, Pluto transforms things. The moon has to do with the body, physical health. Also, he could feel as though he's under a lot of intense pressure. Another possibility is the moon is in his 5th house, which rules children. And this could be something, again, having to do with Hunter Biden. Now, Pluto came very close to an exact square to his natal moon uh, in 2023. I think it was around May, perhaps June. And at that time, Hunter Biden was in the news, which I'm sure caused a lot of grief and sorrow for his father. Uh, and since then, the Republicans have been trying to do what they can to impeach Joe Biden, to come up with some evidence. This time around, Pluto was recently making an exact square to Biden's Pluto, and Hunter Biden was in the news again, but this time around, um, President Biden was, for the most part, exonerated because it turned out that the key witness against him was untruthful. He was simply passing on a lot of Russian misinformation. Uh, I should also point out the thing about Joe Biden is that he went through a lot of adversity early on in life and in his career, and he has learned from that adversity. As a result, when we see tense aspects in his chart, he often knows how to deal with them, how to handle them. So uh, I very rarely see the worst case scenarios manifesting in Joe Biden's case. He's very good at turning astrological lemons into celestial lemonade, and I hope he continues to do so. However, he is getting older, and eventually you do get to a point where these stresses take their toll. So anyway, this is going to be going on throughout this lunar month and actually throughout the year. And some other tense aspects he has is transiting Mars is square natal Uranus. And let's see, you can see I've got everything color coded here to help me find things a little bit more easily. And here's transiting Mars down here in his third house. It's making a square to natal Uranus. Natal Uranus is conjunct the cusp of his seventh house, which has to do with others. The third house has to do with communication. There's probably going to be some sorts of miscommunications or difficulties in dealing or communicating with others this month. Okay, we also have transiting Jupiter going through the sixth house in opposition to, let's see, his natal Mars, which is on the cusp of the 12th house. This could indicate some health problems that come up this month. Even physical accidents could be a little bit more accident prone. This can also manifest as hidden enemies. Uh, you know, people who are attacking him politically or otherwise. So there's a little bit of concern here. There will be some sort of uh, difficulties involving either health or the work he does, and probably some attacks from others. I expect that to be mainly political, and he might be a little bit more accident prone or have a fever, a little illness. And then we also, let's see, we have transiting Saturn square natal Saturn. Here's transiting Saturn down here, natal Saturn up here in a seventh house. So again, this has to do with others. He will experience some frustration probably in dealing with others. Well, that is probably nothing new to him. And he, as I said, he has a good track record of dealing successfully with all these various astrological tensions. So I'm not overly concerned, but those are the tensions for him this month. Uh, he has to be careful of health problems, too much stress. Uh, that may come again from situations involving Hunter Biden. He's going to have some difficulties probably in working with others, probably be verbally attacked by others. Uh, and let's see, did I mention transiting Uranus opposite natal Mercury? I don't think I did. Uranus is here in sixth house of health and occupation. Mercury in the 12th house. So another way to look at the sixth and the 12th house is these houses represent the karma you have to clean up. And by that, I just mean the results of uh, past actions. So actions of his own that maybe require some cleanup or adjustment, actions of others that require cleanup or adjustment. He's going to have to deal with more of that this month, and there's going to be some frustrations in dealing with others. Uh, However, he's good at that stuff, and he has a lot of several beneficial aspects going on too. Pluto, transiting Pluto is trine, sextile, natal Neptune, Uranus, and ascendant. So let's see. This is transiting Pluto over here, and uh, natal Neptune is over here. Natal Uranus is over here. Oh, this is wonderful. His natal Neptune and Uranus are trying one another. Transiting Pluto is completing a grand trine. So despite everything else, uh, this is like the trifecta of higher energies. It's all um, flowing well through Biden now. So he is the kind of person who will respond well to all of this higher energy. Uh, he will see the big picture. He will try and pursue the grand visions, the creative solutions to problems. And transing Pluto is making a sextile to his ascendant. His natal Neptune makes a sextile to his ascendant. That completes sort of a kite formation here. So all of this is going to be funneled through his own self, his own personality. And let's see, I believe this State of the Union address is coming up soon, slightly before the start of the new lunar month. But I think this is all going to be in effect. It is all in effect now, so I'm going to look for some grand visions, uh, a transcendent blueprint for the future at that State of the Union address. We'll see what happens. He's also got transing Neptune trine, natal sun, and Venus. So here's Neptune here, fifth house, creativity, natal sun, Venus here, uh, in the 12th house, but near his ascendant. This is going to be very beneficial. This will help increase his magnetism, that special je ne sais quoi that he will have at this time. Again, this helps with bringing in visions. Okay, transiting Uranus is going to be trying his midheaven. So I won't be surprised if he goes up in the polls, either among Americans or other countries, other people. There will probably be a sudden beneficial spike in his status. And lastly, we have transiting Saturn down here, making a trine to his natal Mars. So he's going to work hard and work well. I think he may get a lot of things done in this lunar month. So, to sum it up, he does have these challenges, particularly health challenges, probably feeling a lot of stress, a lot of frustration in dealing with others, but he has a lot of uh, beneficial aspects on his side too. He'll present a lot of vision, a lot of creativity, and as usual, he's going to be a hard worker. Okay, and here's the graph showing when things are exact and what's hard and what's easy. Again, you can see Pluto square moon. It's going to be pretty strong throughout. It was exact at one point in February, and it will be exact at some other points later on this year. Uranus opposition is Mercury. That is going to be exact on April 15th. That's into the next lunar month, but keep an eye on that date for what sort of creative plans emerge. Saturn, square Saturn, that the exactness is already passed. That was on April 1st. So fortunately, that is going to be fading throughout this lunar month. Jupiter opposition Saturn, or sorry, opposition Mars. That is exact on the 8th, right before this lunar month. Let me go back one. Let's see. Yeah, I've got transing Jupiter opposite Mars here. So by the time we get to mid-March, that influence will be pretty much gone. We'll be out of that 2-degree range. Now, if we look at the good aspects, you can see by the blue lines, we got a lot of them this lunar month. And Pluto trine Neptune, that's going to be exact on the 13th. Neptune trine Sun, that's going to be exact on the 22nd. So those are probably going to be very good days for him. Jupiter trine Venus, that becomes exact in the next lunar month on April 19th. Let's see. I mentioned Uranus opposition Mercury, that's exact on April 15th. And let's see, Uranus trine his midheaven, that's going to be exact on March 11th. That's the day after the new moon. So the new moon is reinforcing that. So there may be a good response to a State of the Union address. Saturn trine Mars, that's going to be exact on the 23rd. This is 2 days before the full moon, which is a lunar eclipse. So you will probably get an extra boost from that. I don't have Jupiter trine midheaven highlighted here. That is going to be in effect pretty much in the next lunar month. We'll see a little bit of it in effect at the tail end of this lunar month, but it becomes exact on April 12th. Okay, now let's move on to the next chart, which is Donald Trump. Oh, let me go back to Biden's for a second, because you see, I do have one of those little rectangles here in the center of the chart. On the April 8th solar eclipse, Sun, Moon, and Transiting Chiron are going to be making a very strong square to his Saturn Chiron midpoint. So the eclipse could impact him fairly strongly. And let's see, this can have to do with restriction and wounding, or working diligently and transcending. So that's the worst case, that's the best case scenario. Biden, in his case, there's a little greater chance that he will do something transcendent. Okay, now if we go on to Trump, the main thing in Trump this chart this month is transiting Chiron in the North Node and opposite to natal Jupiter and Chiron. Now, transiting Chiron, it's just past this opposition to natal Jupiter. It had been wounding his reputation, but now that's passing. Wounding his luck, I should say. The transiting North Node and South Node, they're getting closer and closer to conjunction with natal Chiron. And as that gets close to exact, there is probably some wounding he will undergo. So this is all ongoing stuff as a result of the trials he now has to go through as a result of his past actions. So he's not out of the woods yet, let's say. There are going to be some things which wax and wane throughout the year. The transit by Chiron is separating, that's good for him. The transits by the lunar nodal axis, that's applying to natal Chiron, that's not quite so good for him. Nonetheless, he has transiting Chiron, making a sextile to natal Uranus. This has a lot to do with his prestige and status. And transiting Neptune is trining his natal Venus, which rules his 10th house of status and society. So it also gives him a lot of good luck. This gives him magnetism. Neptune trine natal Venus. It is part of his ability to mesmerize the nation. In fact, if we look at where his natal Neptune is, it's at 5 degrees Libra. And if we go back to this chart for America here, rising sign 7 degrees Libra. That shows you right there why, from an astrological perspective, why Donald Trump is so good at mesmerizing the nation. Okay, let's get back here. Anyway, as a result of these beneficial aspects, there are some things which are going to fall his way right now. And we've seen that with the most recent Supreme Court decision, which basically said that states don't have the power to take him off of their ballot for the fall presidential election. Okay, now I don't have any midpoints in his case that are going to be activated uh, by that April 8th solar eclipse. Okay, and with the eclipse occurring at 19 degrees 24 minutes Aries, or rather that Sun Moon Chiron conjunction at the eclipse at that point, that's going to kind of give a glancing blow to his natal Jupiter, which is at 17 degrees 27 minutes of Libra, but it's getting about a couple of degrees away, so I'd say a glancing blow from the eclipse at best. Okay. Uh, Chiron in opposition to his natal Jupiter. Uh, that is going to be exact on March 5th. And let's see the date on which I'm doing all of this. Oh, today is March 5th. So let's see if there are things that happen today that wound his luck. Uh, the lunar nodal axis in opposition to, let's see, natal Chiron, that is still strong, but fading. And let's see, I'm looking for something else here. Let me go back a second. Yeah, lunar nodal axis, north node opposition to Chiron. Oh, yeah, yeah, that's right. Sorry. Uh, let's see, I was thinking of the USA chart where we had Saturn at this point in Libra, so I was looking for that north node opposite Saturn, but in Trump's case, it's north node opposite Chiron. So Chiron is leaving that opposition to Jupiter. The lunar nodal axis is applying to this opposition conjunction with natal Chiron, which can bring more wounding in his case. By the way, you might notice that natal Chiron is at 14 degrees 55 minutes of Libra. In the USA chart, what do we have? Natal Saturn at 14 degrees 45 minutes Libra. Trump's Chiron sits right on top of Saturn, and not only the July 2nd chart, but all the July 1776 charts for America. Uh, Saturn is the structure of this country, and in particular, the structure of our relationships with others, since Saturn's in Libra. And Chiron is famous for wounding things when it doesn't operate at its best. And I can think of no one who has wounded the structure of our democracy and our relations with other countries, relationship with NATO, more than Donald Trump. No president has done that more in my lifetime. Okay, so there are those tensions going on, but Chiron sextile Uranus, that's exact on March 13th, continues throughout the lunar month. Uh, Neptune trine natal Venus, that's past exactness. It's fading, but will still be in effect through most of March. That is going to bring him some more uh, breaks, more luck, more ability to mesmerize people. But fortunately, Neptune trine Venus is fading, unfortunately for him. Of course, I don't have a flag, but later on we get Chiron uh, making sextiles to the north node, which means he'll be trine the south node in his chart, and that could bring about some beneficial things. That will start to build in April as well. Chiron making a trine to his moon. Okay, so I don't have a flag, but they're worth noting. They're going to start taking effect in April. The Chiron trine moon, that's going to start to first be noticeable around the time of that April 8th solar eclipse. So that is actually the start of the next lunar month. And what I have, let's see, here's Chiron. Where are his nodes? At 20 degrees, 20 degrees. So when we get to that Chiron return in America on April 20th, transing Chiron will be at 20 degrees Aries. And it's also going to be very strongly sextiling and trining the lunar nodes in his natal chart at that time. So uh, that could be very beneficial for Trump. We'll have to wait and see exactly what happens. A lot of this I have here, it gives you dates to keep an eye on. See, does something good happen to Trump on these days, or the day before, day after, or does something bad? Trump is not as good at transcending or dealing with adversity as Joe Biden is, for example. So when you have adversity affecting Trump, it's usually the worst. Now, there's not a lot of activity by transits going on in Trump's chart. So I would also look to see if any midpoints are being activated. And there are quite a few. So I've highlighted the main ones here. Uh, the midpoint between transiting Neptune and Pluto will be opposite his ascendant on April 3rd. Let's start with this one. Transiting Saturn Uranus midpoint opposite Chiron. That was exact on March 3rd. Midpoint of transiting Saturn and transiting Pluto. I'm sorry, transiting Saturn opposite the Pluto Chiron midpoint on March 22nd. This one is coming up. This could result in some sort of frustration, restriction, and transformation that is quite wounding to him around March 22nd. And then we got a slew of midpoints here that will be exact on April 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Saturn opposite his Jupiter Pluto midpoint. That will restrict his luck and power. The Neptune Pluto midpoint opposite his ascendant. At best, he will become fully enlightened. I doubt that's going to happen. But this could represent the visions of Neptune, the transformation of Pluto being funneled through his personality. More likely, we'll see confusion, misinformation, and maybe calls for destruction. Power, dictatorship being funneled through his personality. And then on April 5th, we have Pluto opposite his Saturn-Pluto midpoint. So this is restriction, power, transformation, death, and transformation. This could be a time of reversals for Trump. Now, midpoints, think of them as turning points. They're halfway between one heavenly body and another. And so when a midpoint is being activated, these can be times of change. And the dates on which these midpoints become exact, you want to pay attention to and see what happens either on or a day before or a day after those things are exact, and then see if what happens seems to be in line with the nature of the plants involved. Okay, and now let's go on to Israel. And actually, before going any further, let me point this out. In Israel's chart, the sun is in a pretty strong opposition to Chiron. And as I keep pointing out, the real nature of Chiron is it's a bridge between the visible and the invisible, between the planets we can see, sent through Saturn, and those we can't see, Uranus through Pluto. Within us, it is a drive, an urge to transcend the visible and to seek the invisible, to go beyond the reality that we see. In the process, it often has to first crack that hard Saturnian shell we've erected around us, and that's where the wounding comes in. As I often say, you can't make a cosmic omelet without breaking a few cosmic eggs. Okay, so with Sun representing the soul of the nation and the leaders, in opposition to Chiron, and opposition shows two drives, two planetary drives that are trying to integrate with one another. And when the soul of the nation of Israel integrates with this higher, sweeter, more transcendent energy, that is what Chiron really represents. When that happens, then Israel fulfills its ancient destiny to be a light unto the nations. Let me have a little sip of tea here. And Israel often is a light unto the nations when it comes to its achievements in science, academics, and the arts. However, when it comes to politics, and this has to do not with just Israel, but all countries, when it comes to politics, when Chiron is involved, you're probably more likely to get wounding than transcendence. And certainly the whole pattern of Israel's history has been it gets wounded by others, so it wounds others, which then respond by wounding Israel, which then responds by wounding them, and back and forth it goes. And that's what we're seeing right now. Excuse me. Got a little congestion in my throat, so my voice may be a little bit gravelly for a while. But anyway, at the time of the October 7th, 2023 invasion by Hamas, transiting Uranus was very close to conjunction with this natal sun. And that was triggering this wounding, this sudden wounding upon Israel. Okay, now I want you to take a look at this, because this is the big concern, the big worry. I have here sort of the chart showing the positions of the outer planets. Everything from Jupiter on, except for Saturn. I've left Saturn out because uh, between this October 14th, so 2023 solar eclipse, and today, Saturn has moved on about 14 or 15 degrees, or at least it will by the time of the April 8th, 2024 solar eclipse. So it's moved. Everything else is in pretty much the same position, regardless of whether you're looking at the October 14th, 2023 solar eclipse, the October 28th, 2023 lunar eclipse, the May 25th, 2024 lunar eclipse, or the April 8th, 2024 solar eclipse. Excuse me. Except for Saturn, which has moved on quite a bit, so I've left it out. Except for Pluto, which it hasn't moved that far, but it has made a significant sign change from Capricorn into Aquarius. But except for that, the outer planets from Jupiter on are in pretty much the same position for the upcoming eclipses as they were for the eclipses of fall 2023. And what that means is that in some respects, we will be repeating the same conditions that were in effect at the time of that October 7th, 2023 invasion by Hamas. So the great concern is by the time we get to this April 8th, 2024 solar eclipse, that we could see renewed conflict and see things breaking out into a wider regional war that could even involve Iran. Now, that's the worst case scenario. And worst case scenarios don't have to happen because we have free will. We can make our own choices. We can react differently. Uh, so uh, the issue, the issues that were in effect last fall at the time of the invasion and these solar eclipses, they will certainly be revisited during the spring eclipse season, but it doesn't have to lead to the same outcome. We can revisit the same issues, but through good diplomacy, there can be more of a focus on solutions rather than war and death and destruction. But that would be a better case scenario. It's still possible we get the worst case scenario again. But the main thing is the outer planet patterns during the upcoming lunar and solar eclipse in spring 2024. They're going to be very similar to what we had back in October of 2023. So we're dealing with the same issues, and they're all going to be critical. Now, if we look at some of the main aspects for Israel this lunar month, looking at through the guise of this lunar eclipse on March 25th, here you can see transing Uranus opposite natal Chiron. Uranus, it was moving retrograde, now it's moving forward again, so it won't be too long before it comes into opposition to this natal Chiron, and then it will proceed to another conjunction with the natal sun. So this Saturn Chiron axis is being activated. This opposition is being activated again, just as it was activated back in October of 2023 when Hamas invaded Israel. So fighting could resume, or we could revisit the issues, but resolve them to some extent through diplomacy. Transiting Jupiter is going to be squaring natal Neptune. So I'm expecting there to be a lot of misinformation uh, about Israel in this lunar month, and deception and attacks through avenues of communication, and underhand dealing and its relationships with others. Transiting Jupiter is going to be square conjunct natal Saturn, Pluto, and natal lunar nodal axis. You can see Jupiter conjunct that lunar nodal axis. That is going to intensify things a bit. And it's making a square with Saturn and Pluto, which are up here in the 10th house, which has to do with the country's rulers and leadership. So there are going to be attacks to Israel's status. There is probably going to be attacks from others on Netanyahu's government and decisions he's making. Transiting Saturn is also making a square to natal Mercury here. Mercury is in the 8th house of death transformation. Saturn causes restrictions. There are probably going to be a variety of frustrations that Israel faces in getting things done, particularly its ideas and plans, since Mercury is in Gemini. It does have some good things going on, though. uh, which will help. Transiting Saturn is making a sextile trine to the natal lunar nodal axis. That will help reduce some of the tensions. The transiting lunar nodal axis is making a sextile trine to natal Saturn. So they're going to be attacks, but their ability to control and regulate things, situations, that will probably remain intact. And transiting Chiron is going to be trine natal Saturn. This makes it a little easier to get the sweet side of Chiron, the transcendent side, rather than the wounding side, the more spiritual side of Chiron. And Saturn is in the 10th house, which has to do with uh, leadership, status in society. So the government of Israel, with this trine here, it may start to try and pivot from wounding to healing. So we may see more humanitarian aid getting into Israel, and hopefully more concern about the lives of civilians who were not involved in the attack by Hamas, because Hamas is so uh, deeply embedded, intertwined with the citizens of Gaza. It's hard to eliminate Hamas without causing a lot of collateral damage in the process. But we do have things like smart bombs, which can eliminate casualties of civilians. And uh, we're all hoping that Israel engages in more targeted responses against leaders of Hamas, eliminating them without hurting so many civilians. At the same time, we have to keep in mind the dangers that Israel faces. I live in Maricopa County in Arizona, and Maricopa County is larger than the country of Israel. So my county is bigger than all of Israel. And Hamas, over the past 20 years, it has fired tens of thousands of rockets into Israel. So this is like the county that I live in Arizona, being bombarded daily by rocket fire. In 2023, there were over 12,000 rockets fired into Israel. And that is a lot. So that creates a lot of stress. That does a lot of wear and tear on country. And so it's understandable, at least, that with this invasion, that a lot of people in Israel and in the government would say enough is enough. And then they would see that they have no choice, but they have to eliminate Hamas and get new leadership uh, in Gaza, probably leadership that is neither Hamas nor the Palestinian Authority, but involves sort of collective oversight by surrounding Arab nations. That's one possibility. So Israel is very threatened by Hamas. Um, Israel has a strong desire and need to eliminate the threat of Hamas. Uh, at the same time, you need to do what you can to eliminate and lessen the collateral damage, the damage to civilians. Um, Unfortunately, back I think it was in 2005 when Gaza, when Israel, they were occupying Gaza, they left. People in Gaza got to choose who was going to run their government. They chose Hamas. In that sense, a lot of citizens in Gaza do bear some responsibility for Hamas's actions. Nonetheless, as Bob Dylan wrote so eloquently in his song Blowing in the Wind, how many deaths will it take to know that too many people have died? So I can understand Israel's response to Hamas, its threat from Hamas, it's wanting to get rid of Hamas, but how many non-Hamas deaths will it take till we know that too many people have died? We have to do what we can to uh, stop deaths of civilians, and particularly children who are below the age of responsibility, newborn babies. You can't hold them responsible for what happened. It's a difficult situation. And I'm not taking sides. I'm not saying this is the right thing to do, this is the wrong thing to do. I'm just saying it's a very difficult situation. We see it reflected in the astrology, uh, but we have to work for solutions that don't involve just endless conflict. And that is where diplomacy and diplomats come in. Diplomacy has evolved quite a bit since the time that all these nations in Europe stumbled into World War One. So hopefully the diplomats can come up with better and more transcendent solutions. So didn't mean to go on so long about that. But anyway, Israel also has some good aspects going on. We talked about those. So while there's a lot of things which can bring Israel back into uh, greater conflict again, uh, there are also some positive things going on, and I think that they will start to respond to international pressure and the work of diplomats to uh, begin focusing on ways to heal the situation and bring some higher spirituality, transcendence into the situation without uh, endless wounding, endless war. Now, Israel, it doesn't have any particular planets which are being activated by the April 8th solar eclipse, but there's an awful lot of midpoint activations going on. In particular, this one, Chiron opposite the Jupiter-Pluto midpoint. This could have some more serious consequences with Pluto, Chiron being wounding, Pluto, death and transformation, Jupiter simply expanding everything. So it too can be impacted for the rest of the year by this solar eclipse. And by the way, let me mention that later this year, when Chiron goes retrograde, transing Chiron will pass over that eclipse point, uh, 19 degrees, 24 minutes of Aries, several times from about, I think, November of 2024 through February of 2025. So things which happen around the April 8th, 2024 eclipse are going to be revisited later this fall and early next year. Okay, and here we see the dates when things become exact. Transing Neptune square natal Jupiter, that is going to be exact on the 25th, so that could be some deception, misinformation, bad communications related to Israel. A lot of charges perhaps rolled at it. Transing Uranus will be exactly conjunct natal Chiron in the next lunar month. That's exact on April 13th, but it's building right now. A lot of other things that are happening. Exact on March 4th, March 8th, right before the beginning of the lunar month. Jupiter conjunct the lunar nodal axis. That's exact on the 15th. And Jupiter square uh, natal Saturn and natal Saturn. That's up here in the 10th house of Israel's chart. That has to do with leadership. Jupiter's in the 7th house, has to do with others. We'll have to wait and see what kind of criticism or attacks of one sort or another from others that Israel gets around March 27th. And then we have a few good things. Chiron trine Sun, Saturn, that influence unfortunately is fading. Uh, the lunar nodal axis making favorable aspects to Saturn, that is increasing. And uh, transing Saturn making a sextile to the natal north node, which means it's trine the natal south node. That will be exact on the 4th. So the bottom line here is there's going to be some ongoing friction, probably, in Israel's relationships with others. There is the danger of conflict escalating and more wounding as a result of the April 8th solar eclipse and its aftermath, and that being revisited in late fall, early 2025. But there are some very good aspects involving Saturn, suggesting that the country remains in control of the situation, and hopefully it will work with diplomats to find solutions which are better than, as I say, endless conflict. Now, if we look at Netanyahu, what's going on in his chart? Well, he has transiting Chiron lunar nodal axis opposite conjunct natal moon Neptune lunar nodal axis. So let's see what that is here. Here's transiting Chiron and the north node. We've got south node here. And all of that is in opposition or conjunction with, let's see, the natal lunar nodal axis. I should have extended this. Oops. This red oval to include the north node too. I've got the south node included. Also, the moon and Neptune. So this can manifest as wounding of Netanyahu and his status as a politician. And we're seeing a lot of criticism of him now, both inside Israel and outside Israel. Meanwhile, transiting Saturn, making a square opposition to what? Natal Venus, ascendant, and natal Saturn. So he has transiting Saturn coming into exact opposition to his natal Saturn and squaring his natal Venus and his ascendant. So he's feeling frustrated this month. He's feeling restricted in his actions. He also has transiting Uranus and Jupiter over here, making a square to his natal Pluto over here. And let's see, Pluto rules his 12th house of hidden enemies and self-undoing. So uh, this can represent sudden attacks upon him, either verbally or physically, politically, or otherwise, from various individuals, various enemies. So we see that pretty much going on. Uh, let's see, he can be undergoing wounding of various sorts, either politically or physically. He recently had the flu, I believe. He's very frustrated this month, and there can be some sudden things which happen, which impact him negatively. But he also has transiting Chiron. Let's see, that is right here, making a trine to Pluto. That will alleviate some of that tension. He has transiting Jupiter, making a trine to Saturn. Uh, and that will be beneficial. He has transiting Uranus, making a trine to his midheaven. So, in spite of his political difficulties and other problems, there's a good chance that he will remain in control and possibly remain on board as head of the government, at least for this coming month. Uh, it won't be all bad for him, and so he will probably be able to manage these other difficulties one way or another. And here again, it shows when things will become exact. And Saturn square his ascendant, that was exact on the first. So that is waning on its way out. Saturn square his Venus, that is growing. That will be exact on the 21st of March. And let's see, what else do I have going on here? Uranus squares Pluto, that is fading. The conjunction of the lunar, transiting lunar nodal axis with its natal lunar nodal axis, that is waxing and waning, still pretty strong. Doesn't become exact this lunar month, but his life is feeling more intense, to say the least. Uh, Jupiter square Pluto, that'll be exact on April 3rd. Saturn in opposition to its natal Saturn. That starts to come into effect right at the end of March, and it builds, becomes exact on April 17th. So that is a point of peak hardship and frustration, perhaps. Uh, Chiron conjunct the nodal axis, as I said, that's fading. The lunar nodal axis transiting, coming into conjunction opposition with Neptune, that is building, and will be exact on the 29th. And the good stuff, Chiron trine Pluto, that becomes exact on March 15th. So around this time, we may see um, it being more likely that Netanyahu will try and engage in some actions of healing. I'm not sure he'll quite get to transcendence, but I hope so. Jupiter trine Sun, that is exact on the 22nd. During this period, he will be a little bit more easily able to balance growth and regulation, expansion, contraction in his own life. And Uranus trine the midheaven, that is going to start taking effect in the latter part, so around the last week of March. It will grow throughout April, so uh, his popularity may increase in some circles, his status at this time. Okay, so that's mainly what's going on with Netanyahu. A lot of it we're seeing already, frustrations, pressures from others, uh, wounding of one sort or another, but ability to stay in control, and his popularity may grow, and he may make some more transcendent or more healing actions around March 15th. Okay, if we look at Hamas, let's see. Oh, let me go back to Netanyahu for just a second. Uh, Remember the solar eclipse on April 8th? Sun, Moon, Chiron all exactly conjunct at 19 degrees 24 minutes of Aries. Notice Netanyahu's moon is at 19 degrees. Looks like I have this covered up here. Looks like 42 minutes of Aries. So Netanyahu is going to be very strongly impacted one way or another by the solar eclipse, and it's going to be very closely in opposition to his Venus Mars midpoint, and also closely in opposition to his Sun Mercury midpoint. So Netanyahu is strongly impacted. Israel is impacted by the solar eclipse. And now let's look at Hamas. Uh, what do we have here? Transiting Neptune, square opposition, natal Chiron, Uranus, lunar nodal axis. So here's transiting Neptune. It's basically conjunct this lunar nodal axis and strongly squaring natal Chiron and natal Uranus. So it's going to most likely continue to get wounded a lot. Also, transiting Chiron is conjunct natal Jupiter. This is going to most likely wound Hamas's luck and any desires they had for growth or expansion. And notice where natal Jupiter is 19 degrees 49 minutes of Aries. So that is going to be very, very close to the eclipse point of 19 degrees 24 minutes Aries on April 8th, where Sun, Moon, Chiron will all be conjunct at that point. So the upcoming eclipse is going to very strongly impact Hamas. And it'll also be opposite the Saturn Moon midpoint. So uh, as I see it, Hamas is probably going to continue to go through a lot of wounding this month and into the rest of the year. Notice too that Hamas's Jupiter is very strongly opposite Netanyahu's moon. So they, in particular, are not going to see eye to eye on anything. They're sort of destined for opposition, if you will. Okay, so let's see. What else do we have going on? Oh, transiting Saturn is going to be square natal Mercury, so it's going to be going through a lot of frustrations and wound, wounding either from enemies or its own self undoing. The latter is quite likely. Transiting Jupiter is square the natal moon. So, uh, magnifying tensions here. Transiting lunar nodal axis here and here is going to be square natal Venus. So, again, maybe some difficulties with getting what it wants, what it would like. Venus is in the 10th house, has to do with Hamas's status. Oh, I'll mention we don't have an exact birth time for Hamas. We do know the date on which it was founded. So this chart is just set up for 12 noon on that date. And since I don't know the exact date, I have just set it with 0 degrees Aries rising. And that means that the moon's position could be a little off by a few degrees here, but Jupiter will probably still be scoring it. Okay, now on the good side, transiting Chiron, trine natal Sun, transiting Jupiter, trine Venus. Let's see, where was Chiron? Transiting Chiron here, trine Sun, transiting Jupiter, trine Venus, transiting Saturn. Have these color coded so you can find them without too much trouble. Sextile trine natal Venus and Mars Pluto. So it's trining Venus here. And let's see. I'm sorry, making a sextile to Venus here, a trine to Mars and Pluto over here. That is going to be beneficial, help it maintain its status and its power. And the transiting lunar nodal axis is going to be making a trine and sextile to the natal moon. So north node, trine moon, south node, sextile moon. So most likely, I think Hamas will go through additional wounding this month, be severely wounded by the April 8th solar eclipse. And other things, but I think it's going to be able to hang on. I think it will probably continue to get uh, probably financial support from Iran. And it may not be completely eliminated. I'm kind of hoping that the leaders that were the mastermind behind the recent invasion, that they'll be eliminated or constrained, let's say one way or another. So I'm anticipating Chiron going through a lot of wounding this year, but still having its supporters, its benefactors that will help it out. And this shows you the date on which things are going to happen. And it's got a lot of squares and conjunctions that will be in effect through this month. And again, you can go back, look at particular dates to see what happens around that time and cross-check that with the dates for when things are happening with Israel. Let's see, we have Jupiter square the moon. That will be exact on March 18th. And so that's a date when its luck could be impacted. Let me go back and see what was happening for Israel on that time. Uh, Israel has Jupiter conjunct the lunar nodal axis on the 15th of March. So Israel's luck may expand Hamas's luck may decrease around that time, March 15th through 18th. And then we have the dates when good things will happen. Transiting Chiron exactly trine Hamas's natal sun on March 11th. So it may get some beneficial deal. Might be worked out. They're working on a ceasefire right now, at least temporarily, which could give Hamas a breather and time to heal. Looks like a lot of these beneficial aspects are exact. And first part of March, Jupiter trine Venus, that's going to be exact on the 22nd, right before that lunar eclipse. So that is going to be very beneficial. That could bring some good things Hamas's way. And Saturn sextile Venus, that starts to grow toward the end of March, becomes exact after this lunar month, and the next one on April 17th. And so that could bring some good thing Hamas's way. Also, I don't have Jupiter sextile ascendant highlighted, but I probably should have. It's going to start to take effect right before the end of this lunar month, becomes exact in the next lunar month on April 11th. So again, bottom line is, I think Hamas is going to go through a lot more wounding, but it does have its backers, its supporters, and so it may be taken out of power, but uh, probably not completely eliminated. And it will have some good things that come its way too. A few lucky breaks here and there. Now, if we look at Iran, let's see. Yeah, I did mention the midpoint activations and that at the eclipse, Chiron will be strongly conjunct natal Jupiter for Hamas. For Iran, what do we have going on here? The big thing, transiting Chiron opposite natal Pluto. And look where natal Pluto is. It's at 19 degrees, 6 minutes of Libra. That is going to be very strongly opposed by Sun, Moon, and Chiron during that April 8th solar eclipse. And it also has some midpoints that are going to be activated by that solar eclipse. And with all of these planetary and midpoint activations happening in Middle Eastern countries around the time of that April 8th solar eclipse, at the time of that April 8th solar eclipse, and with the outer planet positions in the spring eclipse season being pretty much what they were at the time of the October 7th attack by Hamas and those uh, October 2023 lunar and solar eclipses. That is why there is a great danger of this expanding into a larger regional war. That's one possibility. But a better possibility is that we revisit all the issues that led up to the October 7th attack by Hamas, and we fight not at on the battlefield, but at the negotiating table. One bright note is that Pluto has moved from Capricorn, where the power is in the hands of individuals, into Aquarius, where the power is in the hands of groups, alliances, diplomats. So that can help push things away from war toward diplomacy. So, yes, one way or another, all these issues are going to be revisited. Uh, but we can make the choice as to whether they're going to be revisited on the battlefield or at the table of diplomacy. Hopefully, the latter. Nonetheless, one way or another, Iran is going to be strongly impacted by this solar eclipse too. And if we're lucky, it will be Iran coming to the negotiating table rather than the battlefield. Uh, Transing Pluto is going to be opposite natal Pluto. And uh, so this could impact Iran's growth a lot. Transing Uranus, let's see, it's going to be opposite natal Uranus, square natal Sun. There are forces uh, which can cause sudden things to happen in Iran. There are revolutionary forces at work, possibly both within and without. Iran has the government has a pretty strong grip on things, but nonetheless, those forces for change are there. And we just have to keep an eye on what kind of changes might be occurring. Transiting Saturn opposite natal Saturn. That's another big one. Here's transiting Saturn, natal Saturn. It's past exact, but this denotes a lot of restrictions on Iran, a lot of frustration in Iran. And then we have transiting Jupiter, square both the natal moon and Mars. Jupiter expands things. This could expand the aggressive, warlike tendencies of Iran, unfortunately. So far, Iran has been acting through its proxies. Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis. Hopefully, uh, it won't expand into, like I say, a larger regional conflict, though that possibility is there. It may also have to fight groups within its own country. That possibility is there too. And there's also the possibility that we could uh, fight at the negotiating table, which would be better. Now, Iran will have some good aspects going on. Transiting Chiron, sextile, natal Mars. And let's see, that is transiting Chiron here, making, let's see, a sextile to Mars. I misspelled sextile, sexty, I put. They'll get some Mars will get some sexty from Chiron. It looks like this is past exact, so its influence is probably waning. The transing lunar nodal axis is making a sextile and trine to natal Mars. Uh, that is waning also. Transiting Chiron, trine natal Neptune, that is increasing. That's going to be exact probably around April 20th. And this can bring out the sweeter side of Chiron, the healing side, which is always good. Transiting Jupiter, sextile Chiron, sextile trine the natal lunar nodal axis. So we've got Jupiter here, the lunar nodal axis here. Jupiter's making good aspects to it that will bring intensification of growth expansion. So what's the bottom line here? A very worrisome likelihood of things expanding into a larger war that involves Iran. Uh, Iran will probably be wounded by the transits of Chiron. Transiting Chiron at the time of the eclipse will be very strongly opposite natal Pluto, and we have some midpoint activations going on. A lot of forces for change within and without affecting uh, Iran. Uh, and let's see, this worrisome transiting Jupiter square natal Moon and Mars. Fortunately, transits from Jupiter, they can be fairly quick, so it may be a week here that Iran may be tempted to take more aggressive action. But let's hope that it doesn't uh, engage directly into the war. Worst case scenario would be uh, Iran directly involved in Middle East war. Hope that doesn't happen. Next, worst case scenario, better than that, but still bad, would be Iran fighting through its proxies, Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis. It is doing that. The best scenario would be Iran joining negotiations to find a negotiated settlement that would benefit everyone. Let's hope for that. There's some possibility of that with the good aspects that are going on. These good aspects may help the government hold on to power, for better or worse, but they could also help lead us into negotiations. Uh, and hopefully, it is the skilled diplomats who can lead the way in that regard and help find solutions that change the situation from endless conflict to endless peace and a win-win for everyone. That's not extremely likely at this point, but that is the direction in which we want to try and take things. Okay. And this graph shows when various aspects will be exact. One date in particular I note is April 3rd. On that date, transiting Chiron will be exactly opposite Pluto. Transiting Uranus will be exactly opposite natal Uranus. So we'll get this exact opposition pretty early, a little bit, few days before the April 8th lunar eclipse. But with both of these aspects becoming exact on April 3rd, keep an eye on Iran and what happens around that time. We have transiting Jupiter square natal moon. That's exact on the 10th. That's the time of the new moon. So that's going to add some additional intensification. Saturn will be exactly opposite natal Saturn on the 18th of March. Pluto exactly opposite natal Jupiter on the 25th. That is the day of the lunar eclipse, the full moon. So that is going to be more intense, more impactful than usual. Some sort of transformation may be in Iran's luck following this frustration. On the 30th, that is when square uh, of Jupiter to Mars becomes exact. Now let me go back here. Uh, let's see. We have this opposition in the natal chart between Mars and the moon, which gives Iran a very aggressive nature. And Jupiter is going to be stimulating that opposition all the way from exact square on March 10th through to the moon to exact square to natal Mars on the 30th. So from the 10th to the 30th. This is a period in which Iran could be tempted to be even more aggressive than usual. So keep an eye on things. And let's see. On the good side, Chiron making a sextile to Mars. That will be in effect throughout March, but it's fading. North Node, sextile natal Mars. That helps release tension, but it's fading. It's on the way out. Jupiter trine Saturn, I don't have that flag. That was exact on the 4th. By the time we get to the new moon on the 10th, it's pretty much faded. Transiting Chiron trine Neptune, fortunately, that will start building, and it will be exact, it looks like, on April 19th. And this is one hope for peace, one hope for the sweeter side of Chiron, overcoming the wounding sign. And so as we get into April, Iran may be drawn more into participating in negotiations to bring about some settlement. I hope so. I hope someone starts talking with Iran. They've been the head of the snake, so one way or another, they have to be probably part of the solution. And hopefully that part will take place through negotiations and not through war. Then we have Jupiter making very beneficial aspects to the natal lunar nodal axis. That'll be exact on April 1st, so hopefully that will help lessen some of the tensions. Okay, now let's move on to Russia, Vladimir Putin in particular. And he's got a lot of stuff that's going on in his chart. He's had a lot of stuff that's been going on. We've got transiting Chiron, opposite square natal Saturn, Neptune, and Uranus. Let's take a look at that. Here's transiting Chiron circled by red. It's in opposition to natal Saturn and Neptune, and it's squaring natal Uranus. Chiron is going through a 6th house. This shows a lot of wounding going on. There have been lots of rumors about health problems that may have come and gone. He may have a lot of health problems indeed, and I wouldn't be surprised if he is wounded either through health or physically somehow through hidden enemies. Certainly going to be a lot of frustration. With Neptune involved, the situation becomes kind of foggy. With Uranus involved, there could be sudden changes to things. And it's, it's been going on for a while. It's going to be on going. Okay. But, of course, he's got a lot of power, firm grip on power, and he may be able to hold on. I suspect there's a lot more revolutionary sentiment in Russia than we hear about through Russian media. That's represented by Uranus up here. Of course, the recent events involving Navalny are part of what's going on. Now, the transiting lunar nodal axis, conjunct opposite natal Saturn and Sun. So here's the lunar nodal axis. It's intensifying his frustrations as it comes into conjunction with Saturn and Sun. It's moving away from Saturn but going closer to a Sun. So things will be feeling more and more intense for him this month. Transiting Pluto. Let's see, it's down here. Sorry. It is square his ascendant. That is going to be increasing. I don't think it's going to reach an exact square right now. I think it'll turn retrograde before it does that. But certainly in 2025 and 2026, I think will probably have a series of squares, either 3 or 5, and that is going to cause some sort of big change in his life, since his natal uh, Pluto rules his ascendant, and it's his 10th house of status and power. So over the next few years, I and every other astrologer out there practically strongly suspects there will be some big change in uh, Putin's status and his power, and in Russia as a whole, when Saturn and transing Neptune move into conjunction in 2025, 2026. Probably some big shift, not only for Putin, but for Russia. Okay. Transiting Neptune square his natal Mars. That's slowly fading. A lot of anger, confusion, uh, acting upon wrong information, wrong beliefs about things. We've seen that throughout this entire war with Ukraine. We also have transing Uranus, Jupiter, conjunct square, natal Jupiter, Pluto, lunar nodal axis, and midheaven. Where is that happening? Well, right here. Uh, we have transing Uranus and Jupiter. It's making contact with natal Jupiter here, squaring the lunar nodal axis, the midheaven, and natal Pluto. This is forces for change again. When this was active in summer of 2023, we saw Prigozhin march upon Moscow, challenge Putin. We've seen Navalny challenge Putin, and Navalny's gone now. But there's a lot of force for change uh, in Russia, in Putin's life right now. And even though he has a firm grip on power, I don't think he can hold on forever. So anytime between now and the next couple of years, 2025, 2026, I think we will see Putin leave power. Some big change happening. Okay, now he does have some things which are beneficial. Uh, let's see, he has transing Pluto, trinatal moon. That's good for holding on to power. Pluto, trine moon, transing Uranus, Jupiter, sextile, natal Uranus right here. Transiting Saturn over here, trinatal Venus, that's in his first house, so that's going to be very good for him maintain control. Transiting Chiron, sextile trine the natal lunar nodal axis. So let's see, that's going to be here, here, and here. So for now, I think he's going to be able to hold on, but he is again one of those who will be likely wounded uh, by the uh, upcoming April 8th solar eclipse, where Sun, Moon, and Chiron are all exactly conjunct at 19 degrees 24 minutes of Aries. He's going to have midpoints activated by that eclipse. The Sun, Moon, and Chiron, they're going to be opposite his Sun, Mercury midpoint, so it affects him personally. Mercury, Saturn midpoint. He'll probably be very frustrated, unable to control everything. His Saturn Neptune midpoint. It doesn't hit, the opposition doesn't hit Saturn or Neptune exactly, but it hits the midpoint between these two planets very, very strongly. Okay. And so it might be illness that makes him leave office. It's interesting because uh, Russia, the Soviet Union, for a long time, they've undergone big changes whenever the planets Saturn and Neptune come into conjunction. Uh, the next Saturn Neptune conjunction will be exact on around February 19th or 20th. I think February 20th of 2026. It'll be near exact at times in 2025. But Putin himself was born under a Saturn Neptune conjunction. They're only about 4 degrees apart. And remember that when the Saturn Neptune conjunction occurred in 1989, the Berlin Wall fell. Literally dissolution of structures, which what Saturn conjunct Neptune means. And not long after that, the Soviet Union collapsed and several states separated from Russia, including Ukraine. Uh, and Russia was headed toward a more democratic kind of country. But all of that changed when Putin came into power. And since he was born under a Saturn Neptune conjunction, he continues that pattern of Russia changing directions under Saturn Neptune. He was sort of like an individual Saturn Neptune conjunction, which took Russia away from democracy back to authoritarian control. Okay, well, with the good planets, or not good planets, but these outer planets making good aspects in this lunar month and beyond, I think uh, Putin may hold on to power for a while, but he's got a lot of dark clouds that have been on the horizon and will continue to be on the horizon. And so I think it's just a matter of time for him, given his aspects, the things that'll be activated by the solar eclipse and then reactivated again in uh, late 2024 and early 2025 when transiting Chiron reactivates that eclipse point. You know, all of this stuff suggests that his days are numbered. If not now, certainly within the next couple of 2.5 years, we're probably going to see Putin leave and um, Russia change direction again. I don't usually like to make exact predictions because everything's really based on probability. So it's still possible Putin may stay in power, but there's very high probability that events will alter his life and probably force him to leave power. Okay, not this month, but in the next few years. All right, and this graph shows when things will become exact. Uh, Chiron opposite Saturn today. Okay, I'll have to check the news today, see what's going on with Putin. Chiron will be squaring his Uranus. And let's see, that's up here in his ninth house, actually. That will be exact on the 22nd. And let's see, Pluto squaring his ascendant, that's moderately strong but doesn't become exact. Neptune square Mars, that is slowly fading. Uranus conjunct his Jupiter. That is going to be exact on the 6th. And that's just the day after Chiron opposition to Saturn. So uh, these 2 days are going to be critical. Today and tomorrow are going to be critical for Putin. We may hear about it, we may not. Like I say, Russia's a closed society in many ways. Putin has a strong grip on power. So he could endure maybe these aspects, but at the very least, this could be more protests against Putin right now. Uh, Uranus square his lunar nodal axis, that's exact on the 13th. Square his midheaven. This will be exact on April 10th, just a couple of days after the uh, solar eclipse on April 8th. So this could impact his status quite a bit. Have to wait and see. Uh, Jupiter conjunct Jupiter, that's fortunate aspect. That's exact on April 11th, right after uh, the solar eclipse. Jupiter square is lunar nodal axis. That's going to be on April 11th, will be exact. Chiron opposition to Neptune, that's starts building in early April, will be exact sometime later on. Okay. The good things, Pluto trines his moon. That's not exact now, but it's building. That can increase his power, his hold on power and status. Saturn trine his Venus. That will be in effect throughout all of March, exact on the 15th. That will help him maintain personal control of things. Chiron making a sextile trine to the lunar nodal axis. That's going to be building exact on the 18th of April. That helps him out, as does Jupiter sextile Uranus, which is exact on the 5th. So he's got a lot of problems to deal with, but a few important beneficial aspects that may help him stay in power for now. But as I say, it's only a matter of time before he leaves power one way or another. And though he could hang on much longer, I expect him to be gone anytime between now and early 2026. And the last chart I want to look at is Ukraine. There's its natal chart. Uh, you can see there's a lot of oppositions in this chart, which can indicate a lot of ongoing conflict. And there's some in conjunction quincunxes, which indicate ongoing adjustments that have to be made. And that does indeed seem to be a lot of the history of Ukraine, conflicts and adjustments. Now, if we look at the transits, uh, transiting Pluto conjunct opposite natals, Saturn and Chiron. The good news is I don't see things particularly being activated by the uh, April 8th solar eclipse, but there are other things going on that are worrisome. Pluto, planet of death and transformation. It's in opposition to Chiron right now, in conjunction with Saturn right now. It's going to turn retrograde before the opposition to Chiron becomes exact, but it will, have exact conjunctions, I believe, with Saturn. And it's stimulating this natal opposition between Saturn and Chiron, which has been resulting in a lot of wounding. And Pluto is death and transformation. Uh, so this denotes a hard future for Ukraine, and a hard month for Ukraine. And to add insult to injury, transiting Chiron right here is making a square to the lunar nodal axis. So that is just intensifying the wounding right now. Transiting Jupiter is opposite natal Pluto in midheaven. This will probably create some difficulties for uh, uh, the leaders of Ukraine. and its ability to continue to engage uh, in this conflict. This could be problems for Zelensky and others that are leading Ukraine. Transiting Uranus, square the moon. Uranus causes sudden changes. The moon represents the people, the public, so more hardships for them. Now, there are a few good transits going on. Transiting Jupiter and Uranus, making a trine, a sextile to natal uh, Neptune uh, and the lunar nodal axis. So that can bring about some good luck for Ukraine. They may get the munitions, the supplies that they need after all. I hope they do. Transiting Saturn over here is making a sextile to natal Uranus and Neptune. Again, this can denote some good fortune that comes their way. And transiting Saturn is going to be trine the natal midheaven. And that can be good news for the leadership of Ukraine. Okay, so all in all, uh, there are probably some very strong trials and tribulations ahead for Ukraine. Uh, Sudden events that can affect the people, the public. But there are also some good aspects going on, which may save Ukraine, at least in the short run for this lunar month. If we look at this graph, here you can see what concerns me. Uh, Transiting Pluto, it's going to be exactly conjunct Saturn. Let's see, on March 13th. This conjunction is very strong throughout this lunar month. And I think over this year, it does more conjunctions as it will do more conjunctions as Pluto turns retrograde, briefly goes back into, um, let's see, Capricorn, and then we'll start moving direct, make a conjunction again. And then I think it will be doing a series of conjunctions or oppositions over the next couple of years with Chiron. And that means that uh, extreme difficulties are going to continue either through war or through the aftermath. Uh, Transiting Chiron is square the lunar nodal axis on March 22nd, right before the lunar eclipse. So that could intensify wounding of various sorts. Jupiter opposition to the midheaven, that's going to be a little bit more fleeting. It'll be exact on the day of the new moon, March 10th, and just a few days before Pluto is an exact opposition to Saturn. So those things are going to be in effect around the same time, unfortunately. Transiting Uranus square the moon, it starts to have an impact by mid-March, increases becomes exact on April 26th in the next lunar month. Jupiter opposition, natal Pluto, that is going to be in effect from latter part of March through mid-April, becomes exact on April 2nd. Pluto opposite Chiron, it starts to grow in early April. It's going to be quite a while before it becomes exact, though, because Pluto will turn retrograde and make more conjunctions with natal Saturn. Okay, so it's the impact of Pluto, transiting Pluto, and the length of time that it is going to be activating this Saturn, natal Saturn Chiron opposition. That is what worries me the most. That's going to go on for a few years. And let's see, there are a few good aspects. These right here are going to be in effect. They're going to be on the way out early in March. Jupiter trine Neptune, that is exact on March 17th. Around this time, maybe Ukraine will get more supplies that it needs. Saturn trine Midheaven, that's exact on the 27th. That'll be good for Zelensky and the government of Ukraine. Saturn sextile Neptune, that is exact on April 7th, right before that April eclipse. Again, I'm hoping Ukraine finally gets the supplies it needs from the United States. And Jupiter trine sextile the lunar nodal axis, that is exact on the 5th. Late March through mid-April is its orb of influence here. Okay, so bottom line, Ukraine has some hard years coming up. And let's see, that's my last slide in this slideshow. Tell you what, let me stop sharing that and do a little something in real time here. Let's see. Okay, I just stopped sharing my screen. I'm back. Let me see if I can bring up Ukraine's chart real quickly. Add chart here. Look at Ukraine. Independence. Done. Uh, Let me change. Let's see. Oh, I'm not sure if I'm sharing now. Let me take a look. No, I'm not really sharing. So let me share that screen here. Sorry about that. Okay. Here we have Ukraine's chart. Again, hold on. I need to get rid of some things so I can see what I'm doing here. All right. So what I want to do is I want to change my house system. And now let's look at a timeline. Let's say January 1st, 2024. Let's go for a whole year. And I'm going to select just, let's see, yeah, Pluto, Saturn, Chiron. Actually, I just want to look at Pluto here. Okay, and for aspects, look at conjunction, opposition. Oops, what happened? Well, sorry about this. I'm afraid that my program has frozen up. So I was going to show you. Oh, good, it just unfroze. So I can show you this. Uh, okay, here we can see in 2024 when Pluto will be conjunct Saturn and when it's going to be in opposition to Chiron. It just gets barely within orb of opposition to Chiron, but it turns retrograde and starts moving away again. But Pluto conjunct Saturn, we have that conjunct on, looks like March 13th. And I think that is June 23rd of this year. Might be 25th, but I think that's 23rd. And if I go into 2025, we have another conjunction of Pluto with natal Saturn on January 15th. But then February through August, Pluto opposition natal Chiron, that gets within orb again, doesn't become exact. And Pluto conjunct Saturn, that's going to be exact next year on September 12th and November 8th. So that is going to be 1, 2, 3, 5 times that transiting Pluto is conjunct natal Saturn in Ukraine's chart. And then in 2026, we have 3 times that Pluto will be in exact opposition to natal Chiron on February 6th, looks like August 14th and December 14th. And then it kind of gets a little bit within orb in 2027, but is mostly on the way out, and by 2028 we're done with it. So what is this telling us? This is telling us that transiting Pluto, it's going to be affecting Ukraine quite a bit over the next 3 years. In 2024, 2025, 2026, we have 5 conjunctions that will take place with natal Chiron, 3 oppositions. I'm sorry, 5 conjunctions that take place with natal Saturn, 3 oppositions that take place with natal Chiron, and that is going to be a very tough time that Ukraine has to go through. Let me stop sharing now. Okay, so I'm back. So it looks like Chiron, in this lunar month, it does have some good aspects that may correspond to getting the munitions and supplies it needs. But the next 3 years, very tough for Ukraine. 5 conjunctions of Pluto with natal Saturn, that's death and transformation combining with restriction, regulation, control. And then we have in 2026, 3 times that Pluto will be in opposition to natal Chiron. So again, that's death and transformation, death and destruction. Combine worst case with wounding, better case healing, best case spiritual transformation. Wouldn't it be wonderful if 2026 is a year of spiritual transformation for Ukraine? I don't give that a real high probability right now, but it could happen. That could be the result. So visualize that, keep that in mind. Perhaps we can work toward that. Right now, more likely, are 2 years of intense frustration, restriction, followed by another year of maybe even more wounding. But if we're lucky, if we make the right choices, 2026 won't be a year of wounding, it'll be a year of joy and transcendence and spiritual transformation for Ukraine. So keep that outcome in mind, because the more you visualize it, the more likely it could happen. Okay, well, this has probably been a long video, but I hope you got some good information out of it. It shows individuals and countries that can be strongly impacted by this upcoming solar eclipse and the upcoming lunar month from March 10th through April 8th. So I hope you find the information useful. And I hope you focus on the best outcomes and work toward them instead of being living in fear of the worst possible outcomes. So that's it for now. I'll see you later. Hope you join me again. In the meantime, be well and do kind things to others, give to charity, and do what you can on an individual level uh, to make this world a better place, because the individual actions of billions of us can make a tremendous amount of difference. Okay, so with that, I'll end this. I'll say so long and peace. Peace be with you.